The man accused of shooting a 17-year-old during an unsanctioned pub crawl in Oshkosh now faces a $100,000 cash bond.
23-year-old Devin Price made his initial appearance in Winnebago County Court today. He faces 4 criminal charges, including first-degree recklessly endangering safety and reckless injury. Drew Best is live in the newsroom with new details released today in court documents. Drew.
Jason and Elise, prosecutors allege Devin Price opened fire in a crowd of people after he had been punched in the face during a fight. The gunfire hitting a bystander in the calf and ankle. According to the criminal complaint, the victim told investigators he and Price did not know each other, seeing him for the first time when a fight broke out near the corner of McKinley and John Saturday evening. That's when the victim says he saw Price pull out a handgun and begin aiming it at the legs of people in the crowd before firing off 4 shots. Price told investigators after he was punched in the face, everything, quote, went black, and he doesn't remember grabbing or shooting his gun. He also admitted to being intoxicated when the shooting occurred and that he got the gun from someone in Chicago and knew it had previously been stolen. Officers could not find the gun when they first located Price an hour after the shooting, but 2 days later, an anonymous tip pointed them towards a sewer several blocks away from the scene where they found the handgun allegedly used in the shooting. Price is due back in court next week for further proceedings. More details from the criminal complaint can be found on our website, WBAY.com. Jason and Elise.